and that made him trigger his creativity. And then when Brahma advised him that you should write something on this, he wrote the entire text of Ramayana, which has got 7 chapters and which has got an elaborate description of Rama's life and other characters which are related to him. So there are so many incidents in Rama narrative that is that they which set the examples or which tell us what are the do's and don'ts. You see that there is a clear cut conflict between Ram and Ravan, and Ram had set the example of how the human being should behave, and Ravan had set the example that how the human being should not behave. So it's like the do's and don'ts in a very clear cut format, which tell us that even today how to behave and how not to behave, what to do and what to avoid. So, to begin with, we can just look at the first story that I have selected, which is about the Rama who proved to be the ideal son. Now, what had happened was that Rama was the eldermost son of Dashrath. Dashrath had 3 wives, Kausalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi, and this created happiness everywhere except in the mind of Manthara, who was the maid servant of Kaikeyi and who was accompanying her right since her childhood. So Manthara had a complete soft corner for Kaikeyi and her son Bharat. She wanted Bharata to become the king because she had this insecurity in her mind that if Ram becomes the king, Bharat would not get the kingdom, that is for sure. And another thing is Kausalya and Ram would treat Kaikeyi and her son as their slaves. Now this is a completely baseless kind of impression in her mind, but somehow when somebody gets polluted with such kind of thoughts, he just goes on the same track. And therefore, Manthara did not only get into these thoughts, but she provoked Kaikeyi. Kaikeyi initially was not at all ready to accept such kind of things, but then somehow Manthara could convince her, and therefore, what happened was Kaikeyi long back had committed, she had helped her husband Dashrath, and Dashrath had offered her 2 boons. And he had said that whatever you want from me, you can ask it. And she very diplomatically said that I am not going to ask it for now, but I will ask it when the right time will come. Waqt aane par maang lungi. This is how she kept it on hold. And now when this crucial time came in her life, she just made it possible and asked with these 2 boons. With 1 boon, she asked that the Bharat should become the Yuvaraj or the future king. He should be declared as the future king. And with the second boon, Ram should go to exile for 14 years. Now, this was something which was a deeply shocking thing for Dashrath, and he could not digest it. But when it was informed to Ram, he was so obedient to his parents, and even to Kaikeyi, who was not his real mother, actually speaking. But they shared a very affectionate bond of mother and child, and therefore he said that never mind, nothing doing, whatever has happened has happened. Now, if they want me to go to exile, my mother wants me to go to exile, I am going to go. There is no second thought on this. And he immediately, the one who was getting prepared for the ceremony of being a Yuvaraj, immediately stepped into the other role and shifted his mind towards the exile. And 14 years is not a short period. Please understand, it is a period of, it's a long duration in one's life. The entire 14 years would be completely ruined. But then he got ready for it because he was a man of principles. He had never thought like, I want kingdom, I want power. And therefore he just got immediately, he accepted it and he got ready for it. Another character or the other people whom I am referring to over here, one is Lakshman and also Sita. Sita also was a princess. She was a princess of Janaka, though she was found in the crop field. She was not a real daughter of Janaka, but he had brought her up like a princess. And on that background, she was also used to all the royal glories and everything. And when she got married to Ram, she was under the impression that she is marrying a prince. Actually, he was a prince. But then when these happenings occurred in her life, immediately without giving it a second thought, she said that wherever you go, I will accompany you because I am your wife. I am not just married you to enjoy the good things in the life, but I have to accompany you in all your hardships also. So immediately she also said that I am going to come with you. And now there was Lakshman who said that I am going to accompany my brother and my sister-in-law in the forest, just in the capacity of their servant or their security guard or whatever you call it. But I am just going to be there to protect them, to look after them, to see that their all needs are getting fulfilled properly or not, etc. So these two also need or they are also worthy of appreciation and acknowledgement, that how sincerely they also stepped into their roles and they did a very big compromise with their life. For Sita, it was at least the relief that her husband was there and she was accompanying him. What about Lakshman? What about his wife Urmila? Both of them also had done this sacrifice. After the 14 years they were going to meet, Urmila also expressed the desire that she wants to accompany. But at that time, Lakshman said that you cannot come because your sister is accompanying her husband. But I am going there not in the capacity of the Lakshman, the prince. I am going there in the capacity of a servant to serve my brother and my sister-in-law. So servant is not liable to enjoy any pleasures when he is on duty. And this 14 years duration will be my duty, so I cannot take you with me. Now this is something very unsung kind of sacrifice of Urmila also. So these are the people whom we should adore or whom we should look for, where they set the examples, where they immediately choose something which is more great or greater than the materialistic choices, and keeping their own pleasures at stake, making the compromise with their personal happiness, they choose it. And therefore, it makes them great or it makes them ideal. Again, over on the same track, if you observe the behavior of Bharata, whom we meet in this second story, Principles over Possessions, Bharata was absent at that time when these things happened, when Rama went to exile. And after that, immediately due to the effect of Rama's departure, Dashrath died in pain, in agony of separation from his son. So all these happenings occurred and Bharat was at his maternal uncle's place. He was called upon because he was now the responsible one to look after the kingdom, also to perform the funeral rites of his father, and therefore he was called back. He and Shatrughna both were not there. When they came back, they came to know about all these shocks in their city, in their family. And Bharat was extremely upset because he was holding himself responsible. After all, this all happened because of his mother and indirectly because of him, because he was the person whom she wanted to make the king. So Bharat was extremely upset. He not only abused his mother for being so selfish and behaving like this with Ram, but he also said that nothing doing, I am going to go to forest and I am going to convince Ram to come back. I cannot imagine this kingdom without Ram. He deserves to be the king. And now it was a time for a king to take over because Dashrath was no more. Earlier it was just the announcement. But now, as Dashrath is no more, the kingdom requires the king. Otherwise, it becomes completely chaotic. People take disadvantage. And therefore, it is very necessary, when especially this system of engaging a throne by a king was prevalent at that time, it was very necessary. It was a very crucial time in the city or in the kingdom. And therefore, he went to convince Ram. But of course, Ram was so much firm on his words. You know that Raghukula Rita Sata Chali Aaye, Pran Jaye par Vachan na Jaye. He said, I have given a word to my parents that I will be for 14 years in the exile. I won't come back till the 14 years are completed. But Bharat was even more, what you can say, he was also a man of principles, like his elder brother Ram. So he said that fine, fair enough. If you are not going to come for 14 years, even I will not enter the city of Ayodhya. I will take your sandals, I will make them establish on the throne, and I will look after the kingdom just as the guardian or the person on behalf of you. So without entering the city of Ayodhya, I will just look after the kingdom so that there is no chaos. And remember one more thing, if you don't come back after 14 years are completed, I am not going to live even for one extra day, I will immediately surrender my life into the fire. So you have to come after the 14 years are completed. Immediately you have to come and take over the charge from me. Till that time, I will just become the guardian. Now, when all these things had happened, Ram had already gone to exile. If there was somebody else in the place of Bharata, he might have said some words to his mother, but then would have accepted. Now, what to do? I have to take up the charge. But Bharata did not do so. He also became selfless, and he also did not get tempted towards the power, and therefore he went to convince Ram. Both belong to the same dynasty which has always given the highest weightage to the commitment, loyalty. And therefore, when Ram denied to come back, even Bharata denied to go and enter into Ayodhya. And he said that I will be the guardian. Then we go to the next story, which also has to do with the same incidents, the series of the incidents which we are talking about right now, Shravan and Dashrath. When Dashrath was counting his last breaths after the departure of Ram, he remembered an incident which had happened in his young age. These all people who belong to this Raghukul or the Ikshvaku dynasty, as is the name of their Vansha, Ikshvaku, they all are very much expert in shooting the arrow with just the sound coming in. If even if the object is not in front of their eyes, they can shoot the arrow, which is called as the Nadavedhi Ban. Nadavedhi, just taking the guess or the judgment of the sound and shooting the arrow. You might have read similar story about Prithviraj Chauhan. So Raghukul people had that kind of expertise, and Dashrath had that. So he remembered the story and he confessed it to Kausalya that when he was young and he was once just sitting on a tree in the with all the well equipped things for hunting, and he was waiting for an animal to come. And when he heard the sound of water getting drunk or sipped by some animal, he just thought that it is an animal and he shot an arrow. Instead, it was a human being whose name was Shravan. When he shouted loudly after getting injured due to the arrow, then Dashrath realized that it is not an animal but a human being. So Dashrath went hurriedly at the site and saw that the boy is dying. A young boy is dying, and he just could not do anything because the arrow had already hit the target. Now there was nothing which could be done to make him live. Before dying, he said that there are my blind parents. They are visually challenged and they are dependent solely on me. There is nobody else to look after them. So, can you just do one thing? I was here to fetch water for them. You just take this water to them and tell them that I am no more. And then he died. Dashrath had to do this painful job because he was the only one responsible for this. He went to them, he told them, he made them drink water, but then the old parents of Shravan were so much shocked that they said that we cannot live without him. It's not only the dependency, but the bonding. No parents could accept the death of their child, and therefore they said that as we are dying due to the separation from our son, you will also die due to the separation from your son. Dasharath was completely full of guilt, but there was nothing he could do. Shravan's parents also died at that site itself. And then Dashrath, he did not forget this thing, but over a period of time, person becomes completely like the things become dormantly existing in his mind. And then when something like this happens, which touches upon this complete painful thing, then he remembers that I had done this in the past, and therefore my karma now has come in front of me, and it is asking for the hisab. It is asking for tallying the things, and therefore now it is a time for me to reflect upon that. So he told to Kausalya that now their curse is taking a shape, as they have told that I will die due to the separation of my son. I am going to die. And therefore, he just confessed it, and this proves how this karma, now he had done it completely unintentionally without any idea, but then it had got into the death of somebody. So he had to pay the cost of it. That's how Shravan and Dashrath's story tell us about the effect of the karma that we do. One has to completely keep monitoring that how our karmas are. What exactly are we up to? Because one always has to pay the cost of each and every karma he does. Whether it is a good karma or a bad, good karma will of course lead to some good merits to be achieved, but bad karmas will definitely lead to the accomplishment of sins to the account, or depositing the sins to the account of the person, and that gets calculated at some point of time. Maybe now, maybe in the next birth, maybe next to next birth, but somewhere one has to answer about all his actions, and therefore it is very necessary to keep a track, to be watchful about one's own karmas. Okay, when we move to the Mahabharat, Mahabharat is another epic that has got a very popular place in the hearts of people, not only because of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is, of course, one part of it, which we are going to discuss. But overall, also, Mahabharata is something which has got an encyclopedic nature. It has touched upon so many aspects of human life, may it be polity, may it be righteousness, may it be human relations, may it be prescribed duties, may it be psychology, may it be war arts. There is no topic which has not been dealt with in Mahabharata. The human beings, whichever things they tackle in their life, everything has covered. In a very appreciating tone, it is said that Mahabharat means Vyasotchishtam Jagat Sarvam. Uchishta is something that has been tasted. Jhutha. Ushtavlel. So something that has been already tested. So Vyasotchishtam Jagat Sarvam. Vyas has tasted the entire world. What does that mean? Vyas has incorporated everything, every possible aspect of the human life in Mahabharata. Unlike Ramayana, Mahabharata gives you a very complex kind of span of characters which has got different shades in their nature. It's not a straightaway conflict between good and bad. Though we usually say that the Kauravas and Pandavas, as in Ramayana there is Ram, here there are Pandavas and Krishna supporting them. As there is Ravan, here there is Duryodhan, Dushasan. Fair enough, but then if you observe the storyline of Mahabharata, you will understand that it is not as simple and sorted as it was in Ramayana. Because in Mahabharata, you have people who are more like us, you and me, the human beings. They have no divinity as such in them as it is there in the Ramayana. The value systems have got revised to such a large extent that people's behavior is getting changed vastly. You definitely have Krishna over there, but again, the same thing. He uses his charisma, he uses his Sudarshan Chakra, he uses his miraculous powers, that is all there. But more than a divine figure, you understand him as a strategist, as a diplomat, as a person who understands what could be the next step of the enemy. So he has got an image which is of a very clever, brilliant kind of diplomat, and not only as the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Then all the characters in Mahabharat, they are representing different natures of human being. They commit mistakes, they have ambitions, they have selfish motives, they have regrets, they have guilts, and therefore they become more relatable. As I was saying, that Ramayana has got full of idealistic characters. Here you get to know or get to meet more realistic characters. But still, from their life stories, we tend to learn many things. We get to know about how their behavior was. The behavior of somebody led to these consequences which were good. The bad behavior of somebody led to these consequences which were bad. And so we can understand that how we should behave and how we should not. In that, nobody is an exception. Everyone in Mahabharat has got his own story, his own side, his own viewpoint, his own approach, and we have to understand them in their own zone with reference to the other characters. So, one more feature or the characteristic of the Mahabharata is Mahabharata is said to be composed by three different transitions. So basically, we say that Veda Vyasa has composed Mahabharata. It is said that it was only 8,000 verses that Vyasa had composed, and the name of the text was Jai. Jai means victory. So the victory of the Pandavas over the Kauravas, the war, was the story of this text called Jai, which had got 8,000 verses in it. When after four generations of the Pandavas were passed, there was a king called Janamejay who wanted to know about his ancestors, his predecessors, and what had exactly happened before the war and after the war. So he invited a priest called Vaishampayan who added to the story of Jai the story of birth of Kaurav Pandavas and so many other things which are related to their life but not are covered in the Jai till the fourth generation, that is the existing generation to whom Vaishampayana was dealing with. Now the verses went to 24 to 30,000 from 8,000. It was Vaishampayan who expanded the uh, number of verses in the Mahabharata, in the text, which was now named as Bharat, from Jai to Bharat. And the third transition took place when, at the time of a particular sacrificial ritual, a person was called to narrate the stories. There used to be the narrators who used to tell stories just to avoid the boredom in between the sacrificial rituals. The sacrificial rituals would go on for months and days. So, to avoid people's boredom or monotony in the rituals, what they used to do, they used to call a community of the narrators who used to tell the stories. While telling the stories, what this particular person did, whose name was Sauti or Lomaharshani, what he did, he compiled together so many folklores which were floating around in the literature at that time from various places, from various regional languages, and which could be related or which could be relevant from the point of view of the actual Mahabharata story. Might not be as the part of the main characters or their family, but something that could be easily related to. Why he incorporated these stories? Because whenever some words of advice are presented, if they are presented in a very dry and mechanical manner, people are hardly interested in grasping that. When we learnt about Panchatantra at that time, also I said that whenever the story comes, it makes the matter interesting. It is like the capsule which contains the bitter medicine inside and the coating from outside. So that when we swallow the capsule, we don't understand the bitterness or we don't realize it. We swallow it very easily. The medicine works, the medicine does its work, but we don't also realize the bitterness. Therefore the stories do the same thing, that the individual gets to know the message, but on the apparent level it is the entertainment element or it is something interesting happening, and it is giving me the message while listening to that story, that see that Arjun behaved in this manner, so he got rewarded with that. The Dushasan behaved in wrong way, he got punished for that. So the stories he incorporated along with these main stories were different stories, some of animals, some of other human beings. And then, due to this expansion from 24 to 30,000 verses, the number of verses of Mahabharat went directly to 1 lakh, Ekalaksha. And therefore, it got the name from Bharata, it got the name as Mahabharata. Maha is huge, so from Bharat, it got Mahabharat. Mahabharat has nothing to do, the name Mahabharat has nothing to do with the hugeness of the war. After so many years passed, We got conditioned to know it like that, and therefore whenever some big fight happens, we say that today I happen to see a Mahabharat in the train. Now I am making it as a synonym to the war, but it is not the thing. Mahabharat means the huge Bharata text, which has got so many things to discuss, not only the war. Of course the war lies at the base of all this story, but then we should not consider that there is only war which is being discussed in this. Okay, it has multiple short stories which are relevant from today's perspective also. It tells you about the dharma, that is the righteousness. Dharma is not a religion, but dharma is a righteousness, that is the code of conduct, how to behave, how not to behave, do's and don'ts. It tells you about the niti, that is the ethics. It tells you about the vihita kartavya, that is the prescribed duty. So it tells you a lot about many aspects which are related to human life, human behavior, and therefore it is very important to study the stories from Mahabharata. The first story might be very much known to you. I have deliberately selected this story, Arjuna and the Eye of the Bird. While Kaurav and Pandava, the boys were learning the archery skills and the weapon operation from their guru Dronacharya, he was not allowing everybody to shoot an arrow. It is a process. He had done what he had done. He had kept the artificial parrot hanging on the tree and was asking everybody to shoot at the eye of the bird. But before they could shoot the arrow, he was asking a single question to each of them, that what do you see? Whenever the person used to answer like, I can see the tree, I can see the parrot, I can see the eye of the parrot, he used to say, please do not shoot the arrow. He got the same similar answer. Somebody said branches of the tree, somebody says sky, somebody says the other bird, somebody says his fellow students. He did not allow a single person to shoot an arrow. But when Arjuna came in front and he asked the same question to Arjun, what happened? Arjun said, I can see nothing but the eye of the bird. Then he said, shoot. What exactly he wanted them to understand through this? He wanted them to understand that there are so many divergences which are in your way. When you are targeting any aim, there are so many things which might distract your attention, but your focus needs to be fixed on your target, so that there won't be any possibility of getting mm, uh, failure or a less successful attempt of on your side. Now this is a completely cliche kind of message that we keep on getting from our parents, our teachers, and everybody. Don't lose your focus. On YouTube you will get hundreds of videos of such kind. But when it comes from the story of Arjun, it has to teach us a lot, that when we are attending this lecture, when we are studying, whenever we are reading something good, at that time there are so many divergences, like our mobile phone rings. There is a even though it is on a vibrator mode, it vibrates and a message comes on group. Some aroma from kitchen comes. Right now when you are attending the lecture, there might be some favorite serial of your choice is telecasted. The title song is being played and that sound comes to your ears. Some delicious dish is being cooked in the kitchen, so that aroma comes to your nose. See, our sense organs can get distracted by any chance by multiple ways. But at that time, we need to be as focused as Arjun, where he could not see anything except his target. That's how our focus needs to be, so that we can get excel in anything that we are doing. It is not only related to the studies, any work you do. When your mother cooks the food, you might have observed her cooking, that she is doing it with so much involved kind of behavior. Now she is used to, but still she is, when she is putting the spices in the vegetable, or she is doing any work for that matter, the taste is always the same, many times more or less. Whenever she repeats any vegetable or curry, you find that the test is same. Why so? Because the focus while she is doing that is same. So it's not only about the studies, it is in any work you do. While you drive the car or while you drive any vehicle for that matter, if your focus is diverted, nazar hati, durgatana ghati. That's how this focus is very important, and that is the thing they are trying to explain us through the story of Arjun. Then comes the story of King Shibi, who is said to be a very generous king. In Mahabharata, usually when the topic of generosity comes, we are always giving the example of Karna, that he was very generous and he was very selfless. Accepted, he was. I'm going to talk about that also. But then there is another king who is called as Shibi and who was very generous, and his virtues, the glory of his virtues had reached even the heavens. You know that in mythology it is always said that in heavens, if somebody is being appreciated, they are always very much anxious about it, because they cannot just allow anybody and everybody to enter into heaven after the death. And there cannot be many virtuous people on the earth, otherwise earth will turn into the heavens. On a lighter note, but then whenever such thing happens, the Indra, especially the king of gods, is very much insecure about this, and they always want to examine that in reality, if the person is like that and if his life is put at stake, then what he decides. So that's how they want to test his skills or his nature, which is said to be very generous, very righteous. So what they do, Agni, the fire god, takes the form of a little pigeon, and Indra takes the form of a hawk. And obviously, the hawk is chasing the pigeon to kill it and eat it. So the pigeon happens to go to Shivi and asks for protection. And then the hawk also arrives there and says that Shibi, it is my food, so you have to go to give it to me. And Shibi says that no way, it has come to me for help. I am not going to hand it over to you. Now the hawk says that it is not possible. I cannot withdraw from your place. And Shibi says that fair enough, we will make a deal, as I will offer the flesh as heavy as or of a similar weight of this pigeon. So they put the weighing scale as in the traditional ways in this picture, as you can see, and Shibi cuts a part of his flesh and puts it. But as the pigeon is not an ordinary pigeon, it is a fire god. So it keeps on increasing its weight, and it's it is due to that how much flesh he is putting forth, the weighing scale is not getting tallied. And therefore, a point comes when ultimately Shibi himself goes and sits in that and says that my entire body is given to you. Now you can do whatever you want. I am not going to ask for anything, but now it is. I can see that I am not able to give the justice to the request of this pigeon, so I surrender my entire body to you. Now, this is a testing moment where actually he could have said something else, but he did not do so. He was firm on his decision to help the pigeon, and therefore, finally, Indra and Agni revealed their real form and appreciated his virtues and blessed him and went back. When I was telling you that how in the all the characters in Mahabharat are very much human. They make mistakes. They feel they regret. They feel guilty, and nobody is an exception. Even Yudhishthir, who is said to be a personified righteousness. Look at the names of these people. They are very interesting. Like you can see, Yudhishthir. The name is Yudhi is in the war, and sthira is actually sthira. Sthira is stable. So the one who is stable in the war, what does that mean? It need not be necessarily a war on the war field. It is any conflicting moment for that matter. Any conflict which arises in our daily life. I should do this or that. And in that conflict, the one who is stable from here can make a good decision. The one who becomes panicked, one who becomes anxious, everything is messed up then. So the one who can keep his calm even in the conflicting situations is called as the Yudhishthir. You look at the name of Dhritarashtra, he is the one who is holding the nation, holding the country, holding the kingdom, holding the rulership, even though he is incapable of doing that. He is visually challenged. He knows that he is not a deserving candidate to do that, but still he is Dhritarashtra. And you look at the names of Duryodhan, Dushasan. Can you imagine? Duryodhan has got a Dur, we generally use in the sense of Durjan, Dushta. So Duryodhan means the one who is bad at war. Dushasan means the one who is bad at administration. No parents can name their children like this. It's impossible. It's children who may convert their names to such a bad image with their behavior. So in Mahabharat, if you read their names, especially while being addressed by their own people like Shakuni Mama and all, or Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, the names are Suyodhan, Sushasan, the one who is good at rulership, or one who is good at administration, one who is good at war. So Suyodhan and Sushasan are the names, but then with their behavior, what they proved was completely opposite to that. It became Duryodhan and Dushas. Okay, coming back to this story. Now, Yudhishthir is a person who is very much, like as I said, personified righteousness. Dharmaraj is another name for him. So he's always believed to be behaving in a very rational and morally sound kind of way. But now what happens to him? A very strange incident. He after the war and everything is over, he performs a Rajasuya sacrifice. Now this is a very huge sacrifice. Only a powerful emperor can do it. And after doing it, what happens is the sacrifice is not just offering something into the fire. It is inclusive of multiple rituals. In that there is a also a part where you have to feed people. You have to arrange for food, because annadan, food charity, is something which is regarded as very precious or important in entire this yajna samstha or sacrificial institution. So there are so many people who are getting the meals every day, and they are appreciating Yudhishthir to the from the bottom of their heart, very genuine appreciation, acknowledgement that how good he is and how he is feeding people. And a moment comes in the life of Yudhishthir where he slightly gets into that pride wala feeling, and he feels like, wow, I have actually done something that people are appreciating me to this extent. It must be something, otherwise they would not have appreciated me. While he's thinking like this, he happens to see a mongoose. Mongoose, have you seen the animal who is said to be a rival of a serpent? It's very rarely seen, but then you know it. So mongoose, but it's not very ordinary mongoose. The mongoose is doing two strange things. One thing is that his half of his body is golden, made up of gold, partially golden mongoose. And second thing that captures the attention of Yudhishthir is the mongoose is rolling in the food remnants, the leftover food which is there after the people are gone. There are many food particles remaining on the floor. Mongoose is rolling its body into that. Being curious, Yudhishthir goes to the mongoose and asks him that what are you doing, and how is it possible that your partially your body is made up of gold? Um, Mongoose says that I happen to be from a country where there is a very serious kind of uh, drought, and there is no food to eat. People are starving, they are dying. And I was in a house of a person who had only little food left to feed himself, his wife, and his son. And at that time, when they were about to consume that food, a traveler came into their door and asked for food. At that time, without giving a second thought, the person or the householder, the owner of the house, he gave as much as possible food to him, and very little of it he kept for himself and his wife and his son. After the traveler was so happy and satisfied eating the food, he blessed him and he went. Then, whatever remnants, very few morsels or very few particles of food were there on the ground, and the mongoose happened to pass from that particular area, and his body suddenly changed to gold. As the food morsels or the particles were very less in number, his only half of his body was converted into gold. He was very much amazed to see that his body has got converted into gold. But then he was again curious that why only half body? Why not I am completely turned into gold? And at that time, somebody told him that you should go to the sacrifice being performed by Yudhishthir because he is a very generous person. And therefore, remaining a half of your body might get turned into gold only if you visit the sacrifice being performed by Yudhishthir. So the Mungus said that, so here I am trying to convert the remaining half of my body into the gold with the food particles which are there in your sacrificial pandal. And that made Yudhishthir realize that, oh, still he is not getting converted into gold. That means my charity is not as genuine as that person's charity. So the realization point comes, and there he could see Krishna, dear our own Krishna, coming smiling with a smile on his face. And then Yudhishthir realizes that this is the plan of Krishna to make him realize that even a single seed of pride in a mind of person can ruin the merit he has achieved so far. So it's always necessary to keep a check again on our karma, that whatever we are doing, we might be doing a very good work, but there has to be at the same time this humble nature or this politeness in the nature of a person that may not allow him to get into this pride that how generous I am, because the virtues are most dangerous things that can make person feel proud. They can make him ruin all the merit he has achieved so far, and therefore it is very necessary that the person does not get into this feeling of ahankar or pride. And this is by the story of Yudhishthir that they try to explain to us. Then comes the story of the ocean and the rivers. Now this story also directly not related to the family of Kaurava and Pandavas, but then it comes as a part of some conversation. It goes like that there is an ocean which ocean has always this tendency, this is a natural thing, we all know that the rivers get merged into it, and rivers bring so many things with their current, with their flow. There are many large tree trunks and whatnot. Once the ocean, being very curious, asks to the rivers that you bring all sort of tree trunks, and not only you don't bring the cane. Why it is the thing? At that time, Ganga, river Ganga answers to that other trees, they always resist our current. They never are ready to negotiate or to let us go, and they are reluctant to bend. But so we have to uproot them. There is no other option for us to make the way further. We have to uproot them, and then their trunks get floated because we are more powerful than those trees. But exceptionally, when we go to the cane, whenever the cane tree is there in the part of our flow, it always bends towards our advancing current, gives us the way, and when we pass through, only then it becomes normal. So we never feel like offending it by any way. Have you ever seen the cane trees? It is like that, tall, huge, and thin. So they say that it adjusts itself always, and therefore we don't want to harm it by any way. So this story, of course, tells us about the attitude the person has to keep in mind. It's not always being adamant is being right. Sometimes you have to make some compromises. Sometimes you have to come 2 steps back so that you can go many steps ahead. Just being adamant and being, we always feel that what happens if I don't say my opinions? What happens if I don't express myself? I have a complete right to express myself, but you have to think when and how to express yourself. It is not always good or beneficial to just pour out whatever you have in your mind. It is sometimes good to keep silent, to be humble, to adjust according to the situation, and then you get a good reward of that adjustment. May not be immediately, but in a long term. These are the stories which I have included in the PPT. But apart from that, there are two main things that I want to share with you whenever it comes to the moral stories from Mahabharat. I cannot skip these two. The first one is about the Karna. Karna, as I told you that I'm going to talk about his charity, he is said to be the I'll just stop sharing. Yeah. It's said to be the person who always values the charity, the most valued principle in his life. He treats charity as the most valued principle, and therefore, what he does, he always is ready to give everything. If you know that Karna is a son of Surya, sun deity, and therefore he has got as a blessing, he has got naturally two earrings on his neck, that is a shield, which makes him very powerful. He has also got into archery because both of them are equally skilled archery experts, one thing. Secondly, they are always considered as the biggest rivals of each other, even in the Swayamvaram, that is the wedding that has been organized between Draupadi. When it is a target that you have to hit the eye of the fish, looking at its reflection, and up there the fish has been hung, and the wheel on which it has been hung is constantly moving. At that time, it is Karna and Arjun who are said to be the archers or the warriors who would be able to crack it. None other than them, no other person than them will be able to do it. So, Karna is about to go and just try his hand on that. At that time, Draupadi says, I am not going to marry a son of a chariot driver. Now, why he is said to be a chariot driver? Because Kunti had, his mother had got a blessing that any deity she invokes as a uh, blessing from that deity, she will get a child. She is in her early adolescence before her marriage, just to test that whether this chant works, whether this boon works or not. She invokes the sun god, which is very much visible, who is very much visible from her palace window. And she invokes the sun god and then delivers, as a result of the blessings of sun god, she delivers a baby boy. Now, being a princess, she is very much afraid that what will society say, and therefore she surrenders that child in the course of a river. Without revealing to anybody, she just surrenders him. But she is, in her latter life, is able to recognize him because of those kavacha and kundala, the earrings and the shield that he has got. Now, when that child is floating on the river course, it is a chariot driver called Adhirath happens to see that thing coming. It is in a box, wooden box that he's floating. So, Adhirath brings him home, and Adhirath is a chariot driver, Rath Sarathi. So, it is a community, it is a particular community in the society, and as per those days, this hierarchy in the communities was very strongly followed, very rigidly followed. And then when Draupadi says that I am not going to marry a chariot driver's son, what happens is he is not even given a chance to attempt, and then Arjun wins. So it is always in his mind, and there are so many other undercurrents that he is always willing to fight or kill Arjun. So he is ambitious enough to make it possible in the war. But before that, what happens, Indra, again, the one who is insecure and all, is said to always like that. He goes in a disguise of a Brahmin in front of Karna. Long means many days before the war. He goes in a disguise of a Brahmin to Karna and says that I want a very great bhiksha from you, good charity from you. And Karna is like, he is offering him so many things: gold, cows, elephants, horses. Every time he offers something, Indra, in the disguise of a Brahmin, says that I don't want your elephants. What am I going to do with your horses? I don't want it. I'm not interested. But I want something good. Mahattaram bhiksham yache. I want something precious. I want something good. The time comes, or ultimately he is led to such a moment when Karna has to say it. Then, if you want my Kavacha and Kundala, I am ready to give that also. Because he is not ready to accept anything other than anything else. So, ultimately, Karna pronounces this, and immediately Indra says, yes, I want that. Because he had came there with the intention to have that Kavacha Kundala. Now Karna for a moment gets into this suspicion that this must be a trick, maybe by Krishna, to make him even more powerless so that he won't be able to kill Arjun. But then the very next moment, Karna says that I should not think like that because I am the one who is always doing the charity without any selfish motive. So I should not get a second thought. It is not right on account of my behavior that I should be doubtful like this. So what he does, he immediately cuts it from his body, literally chops it and gives it to Indra. Indra goes back but feels like there has to be some compensation of this. So he sends a power which can be operated only once against somebody to kill him for sure. The power is called as Vasavi Shakti, which can be operated only once. But when it will be operated, on whom it will be operated, that person will completely, he will die for sure. There is no other chance to survive. The messenger of Indra comes with this power to Karna and says that our Lord has offered this to you or given this to you. Karna immediately says that I am Karna. I don't make deals. I do charity. I am not going to accept it at any cost. But then the messenger of Indra convinces him somehow and says that please accept it. He takes it and then he says that never mind. Even though I do not have my Kavacha Kundala, I have this power which I may use against Arjun. Now, there is another twist in the story of Karna. Karna had long ago went to approach Parashuram, who is a very skilled warrior, but who is against all the Kshatriyas, that is a warrior clan. And he always is killing the Kshatriyas. Karna approaches him and requests him that please teach me the archery skills. He puts only one condition. He says that I don't teach anything to Kshatriyas. Are you a Kshatriya? Karna, obviously unknown of his real identity, says that I am not a Kshatriya, I am a Sutaputra. I am a chariot driver's son. Parshuram agrees and starts teaching him the archery skills. Once during their course, what happens is Parshuram is resting on the lap of Karna. In the ancient system, the disciple or the Shishya was not only a student of the Guru or a preceptor, but he had to serve him by all possible ways with proper humble attempt. So, Parshuram is resting on the lap of Karna, and at that time, an insect comes over there suddenly and starts biting the lap of Karna. Karna is restless, but he remains quiet, not wanting to disturb the sleep of his guru. And he remains in that stance only. What happens in that is the insect bites Karna's lap so deeply that the blood comes out. When the blood comes out, it flows and it touches the ear of Parshuram. Parshuram suddenly wakes up with that touch of blood. Instead of appreciating Karna, he says that such kind of endurance, such kind of tolerance can be there only in a Kshatriya. You lied to me. You are a Kshatriya. And therefore, I curse you that whenever you will be in a position to use the archery skills you learned from me, you will forget them. Look at a pity of a life of Karna where he will not remember whatever he has learned so far. So when he is in the war field, he is full of all these thoughts. One thing, he has lost his Kavacha Kundala. Another thing, he has been cursed that when the actual moment will come, he won't be able to use his archery skills. So he is, with this feeling, he is relieved that there is one Vasavi Shakti with him, which he can anytime operate on Arjun. To add to his pity, what happens is Krishna sends Ghatotkacha on the war field before they could encounter to or they could meet Arjun. Arjun and Karna are yet to come in front of each other. Before that, they send Ghatotkacha. You might be aware Ghatotkacha was the son of Bhim and Hidimba. Hidimba was a demoness. Ghatotkacha was a combination of a demon and a human who is as ferocious as demon. Bhim was a powerful fellow, even though if you reflect on his name, Bhim means physically very powerful, strong and stout. So when Bhim and Hidimba came together, the child born was Ghatotkacha, who was very powerful, very ferocious, and when he came on warfield, he created havoc. He killed so many Kaurav soldiers, and he was completely unbeatable. There was no way to control him, and at that time, finally, Duryodhan said to Karna that now you use your Vasavi Shakti, there is no other way. Karna said that how can I use it against Ghatotkacha if I have kept it reserved for Arjun because he is my biggest rival. And at that time, Duryodhan said that if you survive at all after this Ghatotkacha episode, then only you are going to meet Arjun. So please think about today. This situation we have to face first, and then we have to think about Arjun. So with a very heavy heart, Karna had to operate this Vasavi Shakti against Ghatotkacha, and then he died. Ghatotkacha died, but Karna had lost everything now. So when the time came, when they were about to fight with each other, Karna and Arjun were in front of each other, and at that time, Karna's chariot's wheel stuck in the ground. When he was trying to remove it, at that time, Krishna instructed Arjun to shoot an arrow, and Arjuna shot an arrow, and Karna died. So when I started with the explanation or the introduction of Mahabharata, I told you that there are no just white and black shades in Mahabharata. You can find that the characters are in multiple colors. They have their own point of view, they have their own sides, which can be understood only when you analyze their story. It's not just the plain simple picture which we can look at and conclude. It's not like that. It's very um, complicated, but very interesting at the same time. And the last story that I want to tell you is about, it's not a story in the real sense, but I want to explain to you is about Bhagavad Gita. When it comes to the morality from Mahabharata, how can we skip Bhagavad Gita? But just to tell you, Bhagavad Gita again is not something that can be just said as a religious text or something that is a sacred text. No doubt it is, but it is not religious in the real sense of the term. It is something which has to do a lot beyond just being a religious text. For that, just we need to understand the background of Bhagavad Gita. Let me tell you that when we were looking at the names, I explained to you how Yudhishthir and Bhim have the meanings of their names. Nakul and Sahadev, of course, the younger-most Pandavas, are very much obedient to their elder brothers. Yudhishthir is somebody who is constantly in a position to negotiate. He thinks that there should not be any war happening because, after all, we are a family. They were cousins, right? So he wanted to avoid the war at the most, whatever possible efforts he could take, he did. And as a part of the conclusion of his efforts, he sent Krishna as an ambassador. Krishna straightaway put a very simple proposal to Duryodhan that you give 5 villages, one for each Pandava, and then they will rule over their villages, respective villages, and they won't interfere. You would be like ruling the Hastinapur and all, and they won't claim it. But on that, Duryodhan very aggressively said that I'm not going to give even an inch of the land. He said that I'm not going to give a piece of land that can be fitted on the nose of a needle. That was so arrogant. And then Krishna came back with this complete assertive kind of mindset that the war is inevitable now. We cannot avoid to fight the war. Yudhishthir understood. He got prepared for that. Bhim, who was already very aggressive and waiting for war, got already into the preparation that when I enter the warfield and when I kill everybody. Arjun was sort of, yes, prepared that, okay, fine, the war is going to take place and all these things. But now look at the name of Arjun. Arjun means Ruju. Ruju in Sanskrit means straightforward. the one who is most sensible, most sensitive, the one who thinks that the um, emotions also have some place in life. It's not just being practical is everything. Such Arjun, when he entered the war field, he looked at people with whom he was going to fight. Now, often the question comes that didn't he know that with whom he is going to fight? Didn't he know that who are his enemies, who are his rivals? He completely knew it. He was well aware of that. But imagine, you know the curriculum, you know the question bank, you know the paper pattern. Still, when you enter the exam hall, there is a little kind of anxiety which occupies our mind. We are tensed, we are nervous, we are a bit anxious. How the paper is going to be, the topic that I put on option, they should not ask the questions on that. My statistics says that last year this was the focus. Now this year, what it is going to be, it should not be pretty difficult. I should clear it. All these thoughts occupy our mind. Depending on the level of anxiety and its intensity, many times when the anxiety is too high, the student starts perspirating, is full on sweats, his pen, he cannot hold it properly, he starts shivering, he feels like he wants to drink water. All these are the symptoms of anxiety. You ask any psychiatrist or counselor or anybody, you will get the same symptoms. Similarly, when he entered the warfield, though he was completely aware that with whom he is going to fight, that was the anxiety which overtook him in that situation. And you look at the symptoms, Sidanti mama gatrani mukham cha parishushati gandivam srausate hastat, same symptoms. That my body is sweating, my throat is dried up. Instead of pen, there was Gandiva. Gandiva is a name of his bow, Dhanusha. It is falling out, slipping out of my fingers. I cannot hold it properly. As a result of which, he felt like he wanted to run away from that. See, whenever we are in such a situation, when we are very anxious to face it, we feel like we have to go from it. You remember Three Idiots that the person wrote on the wall, I quit. This is a quitting syndrome which Arjuna was feeling at that time. Arjuna, a warrior who had fought so many successful wars, who was considered to be one of the best warriors in his era, still, he only was the person who felt anxious on the warfield. Why? Because he had got that transparent mind, that sensitive mind, and that straightforward thinking. So he could not bear with the fact that now the moment has come when I have to operate an arrow, and that's what his confidence was. He knew that when he will start shooting the arrows, he is going to kill people definitely. So it was not lack of confidence. Even when you feel the anxiety, if any of you is feeling the anxiety in the exam hall, it is not because you have not studied. It is because of so many pressures which you carry with you. And I have to pass this. There are my parents who are expecting from me. There are teachers who are expecting from me. Myself, I'm expecting from myself. There is my peer group that is hopeful about me. There are so many pressures we are carrying, isn't it? It's not that we are incompetent or we are lack of confidence, but it is the thing that creates the situational effect, and that was created in the mind of Arjun, and he felt like, I want to run away from this place. I don't want to face this anymore. And at that time, he had Krishna with him. Now, Krishna had already taken the oath that he is not going to hold the weapon in the war, but he is going to drive the chariot, and that too the chariot of Arjun. Why? Because Krishna had that foresight that nobody else but this fellow is definitely going to face this problem, and I have to be there to console him. So Krishna did not only drive the chariot of Arjun, but he gave the direction to the life of Arjun, to his thoughts, to his thinking pattern, to his approach. Now the question comes that if I continue with the example of my exam hall thing, then who is there? So to say, our teachers, etc., are very much there. If your teacher who has taught you that subject comes in the class and says that, I know that all of you have studied very well. Don't worry, you are going to crack it. Your spirits are automatically boosted. And then you become much more relaxed. That fine. Now my teacher has said, so it is going to be an easy paper. Even though in life, when we face such situations, we don't always have somebody to be with us physically and tell us that I'm there, main hu na. But then, in such crucial moments, there are texts like Bhagavad Gita or the stories like in Mahabharat come to our help. Though the people are not present, the books are very much there. We can read them and we can take that guidance. Now, going ahead, what exactly Krishna told to Arjun? He told to Arjun that as a warrior, it is his duty to fight the war. But he did not force Arjun to do anything. He said that let me analyze what exactly are you feeling and what are your misunderstandings in this process. And then he's also made Arjuna realize that what my exact aim of life should be, realizing my own self. Who am I? Why I am here? Why I am in this situation? So to get the holistic identity of our own existence, if that is the purpose of our being here on this earth, then I should be able to find out the answer of this question. Now, you will again say that what is the purpose of explaining this on the war field? And how are people waiting for both of them to finish their conversation? That let your conversation take place. Finish it with whatever you want to, and then we will fight the war. It was not a child's play. But it seems so that on the Kurukshetra, when this thing was happening, Arjuna was in such a situation, but still he was capable person. He was a person who could understand the things. And therefore, Krishna might have explained the thing to him. When it got composed as a literature, it got elaborated to the 700 verses, 18 chapters, and explained in detail for whom? For you and me. For all of us who face the situations where we have to choose something. And it's not the choice between our one favorite and one slightly less favorite thing. No, it is many a times a choice between our two favorite things or two things which both of them we don't desire to do. But still, we have to make a choice. Whenever there is your mother who is working, had to put you in a day, she had to make a choice. Whenever your father might have gone with the promotion on transfer, he had to make a choice whether to be with my family, whether to attend the assembly of my child's school, or whether to be progressive in my career just because I can support my family in a better way. It's not only my career prospects which I am concerned about, but my family should also get secured. So every time in our life, we have to make the choices. And Bhagavad Gita tells you that whenever you make the choice, you have to pay the cost of it. Whatever you do, you have to pay the cost of it. If it is something good you do, you get a reward for it. If it is something bad you do, you get punishment for it for that. Then how to define what is good and what is bad? See, when I say this, all this is happening because somebody has to be encouraged to participate in the war and kill hundreds of people. So, while deciding what is good and bad, we have to be very clear about the definitions. It's not something very rigid, it's not something very stagnantly formulated somewhere. It's always on the situation. It's always on the situation. It's not something which I did and proved it to be right, so you do and it will also be proved to be right. Vice versa. Something I did and I went into complete mess does not mean necessarily that you do the same thing and you will lead to be mess. It's not the thing. It's always the situation which has to be created, which has to be pondered upon, where you have to apply your discretion. And to apply our discretion, the texts like Bhagavad Gita, like Mahabharat help us. Now you connect with the point which I made in the beginning of my lecture, that why at all the stories that are read in our childhood are to be read once again. And why now? It's not in the old age. Therefore, I said that Bhagavad Gita is not just a religious text. See, when the challenges in my life will be almost over, when I will not be, I will won't be in the position to prove my caliber or my nature to anybody in my professional or personal life, what will be the use of Bhagavad Gita for me? It is the most crucial time in my life when I need Bhagavad Gita. It is the most crucial time in your life when you need the text like Bhagavad Gita, irrespective of the importance it has got as a religious text. So, practically, when you talk about morality, when you talk about ethics, these texts guide you in certain situations which are tricky, which cannot be avoided. And at that time, the characters like Krishna, the characters like Yudhishthir, they come to our help and tell us that you are in a similar situation where we are. We behaved like this. These are the consequences which are pretty in front of you. Take a lesson from this and then decide what you want to do. In Bhagavad Gita, also, when they come to the end of the discussion, Lord Krishna, after so many elaborate explanations, tells Yathechasi Tatha Kuru. As you wish, you do that. So ultimately, the choice will be yours because you are the one who are going to hold the responsibility. None of your parents, none of your teachers, none of your siblings, none of your friends can do it, but only you can do it. Bhagavad Gita says that you are the friend of yourself, you are the enemy of yourself. Now, this is a very practical kind of message, nothing to do with the religion or the spirituality or something like that. Of course, it has got some spiritual kind of content. I'm not denying that. But more than that, it needs to be highlighted that it has got the models which are practically necessary for me and you, and which are we are blessed to have them in our curriculum at least right now. They have to be there in somewhere 8 to 10 standards where we are starting to understand the morals, the ethics. We are starting to shape our ideologies, a sort of thing which we are experiencing in a new way. We are exploring the life. But never mind, better late than never. Whenever you come across such kind of thing, you should grab it over. And let me tell you that the Mahabharat or Bhagavad Gita, such kind of books, even Ramayana, need not be necessarily studied in the Sanskrit. If you study them in Sanskrit, well and good. But understanding that your career streams are different and everybody is not acquainted with Sanskrit, never mind. There are translations available. Good translations are available. As far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, there is a translation in almost all regional languages as well as in English by Gita Press Gorakhpur. Even though you go with that, the literal translation of each and every verse of Bhagavad Gita, that is that explains a lot to us. Again, I won't claim that it gives the solutions of our problems. Definitely not. Why do you want the ready-made solutions? The problems are not ready-made. Everybody faces different situations. But then what is the use? It gives us the perception. It gives us the perspective to look at the problem. Is it really a problem, or we are calling it a problem? Right from that starts our brainwash. And that's why we need to read such kind of texts. Now, when we study the stories, Bhagavad Gita has not got that interesting kind of story which I could include in my PPT. But taking this chance, I wanted to share this with you because it is you who need it the most. It is me who needs it the most, and therefore we need to study such kind of things. I am not saying that you have to salute it, you have to bow down to it. If you do it out of respect after reading it and studying it, that would be a genuine gesture of saluting or bowing down. But don't bow it down just because it is related to some particular religious faith. It is not. It is beyond that. Understand the value of the morals propounded through these texts. Do not just restrict them in the framework of a religious faith, because then we are only making it restricted. It has to reach to humankind irrespective of the faith or caste, community, creed, nothing to do with it. It is for anybody who is willing to study it. So that's all from my side. Now I am just opening it to chat so that you can post your queries, or you can ask anything, you can comment anything relevant to this lecture. You're most welcome to do that. Any queries, any doubts, anything you want to know further with respect to this, I'm definitely there to answer in my good capacity. No queries? Have I opened to chat? Yes, I am. I have allowed you to chat. Okay, then I assume that you don't have any queries to ask. Any website? No, there won't be any single website on which you can read the stories. Anyway, I can share this PPT on the classroom so that you get these stories. But otherwise, you get the miscellaneous kind of sources where you get the stories from Ramayana and Mahabharat. Just the thing is that many a times they are not actually from the authentic versions of Ramayana and Mahabharat. Many a times they are from the texts which are based on Ramayana and Mahabharat. So not all are authentic, but then just for your interest, if you want to read, you can definitely resort to any digital source, or the books which are based on Ramayana and Mahabharat. Okay, so I thank you for your patient listening, and I'll post this PPT in the classroom.